Have you ever seen someone stand tall in the face of hate, only to rise so high that the very people who shamed them are forced to kneel for mercy? Well, get ready, because this isn't just a love story. It's a story about pride, prejudice, perseverance, and poetic justice. Meet Danielle Hartley, a white woman born into a small southern town that clung to old ways like moss on a dying tree. Her father, Robert Hartley, was a retired sheriff with a reputation for discipline and a deep-seated hatred he masked behind words like tradition and family values. Danielle had always been different, brighter, kinder, always questioning the world around her. And that made her the black sheep of the Hartley family. But even Danielle, with all her liberal ideals, never expected the day her entire world would turn upside down, all because of who she chose to love. It started during her sophomore year at Georgia State University. Danielle was studying social work, determined to break cycles of abuse and neglect she'd witnessed in her own household. That's where she met Isaiah Coleman. Tall, confident, with rich chocolate skin and eyes that held stories. He wasn't just handsome, he was brilliant. Isaiah was working on his MBA, a scholarship student from Atlanta's South Side who had built himself up from nothing after losing both parents before the age of 16. He wasn't just a survivor, he was a thriver. Their first meeting wasn't magical or romantic. It happened in the library over a mix-up with reserved books. Danielle had mistakenly taken the book Isaiah had placed on hold. "Hey, I think that's mine," he said politely. Danielle turned and for a moment they just stared at each other. She offered a sheepish smile. "I guess we're reading the same chapter in different ways." He chuckled. From that moment something sparked. Over the following months their connection grew naturally. Study sessions turned into coffee dates. Shared playlists turned into deep conversations about life, dreams, racism, politics, and hope. Danielle found herself drawn to Isaiah's strength and integrity. He admired her compassion and her courage to stand alone in a sea of conformity. But as their bond deepened, so did the whispers back home. When Danielle finally brought Isaiah to Thanksgiving dinner at the Hartley home, all hell broke loose. Her mother, Janet, went stiff as a board. Her father's face turned red before he stormed out without a word. Her younger brother, Chase, muttered a slur under his breath. But the worst part? The silent judgment. Eyes wide with disgust. Forks clinking awkwardly. No one welcomed Isaiah. No one acknowledged him. He wasn't a guest, he was a threat. Danielle, shaking with embarrassment, tried to salvage the night. But Isaiah stood calm and collected. "Thank you for the invitation," he said evenly. "But it's clear I'm not welcome." Danielle tried to stop him, but he simply smiled. "It's okay. I've been through worse. This isn't about me. It's about what they choose to see." And with that he walked out, leaving behind a silence so thick it could drown. After he left, Robert exploded. "I won't have my daughter parading around with some thug who probably won't amount to anything. You're humiliating this family, Danielle." Her voice broke. "He's getting his MBA. He volunteers at the youth center. He's better than half the people you call friends." But Robert wouldn't hear it. "If you keep seeing him, don't bother coming back here." That night, Danielle made her choice. She packed her things and moved in with Isaiah. It was hard. She lost friends. Her family cut her off financially. But she had Isaiah. And together they built something beautiful. Isaiah got his MBA, then landed a job at a growing tech startup. Danielle graduated and began working with foster children. 4 years they supported each other, scraping by on tight budgets but always believing in the future. And then everything changed. Isaiah's startup took off. Within 3 years he became one of the youngest black executives in Atlanta. By 5 years he was worth millions. And he never forgot the pain of being looked down on by Danielle's family. One cold winter evening Danielle got a call. Her father had suffered a stroke. Her mother was struggling to pay medical bills. The Hartley house, the house where she'd grown up, where she'd been told to leave, was on the verge of foreclosure. Janet was desperate. "Danielle, please, we need help. The bank's going to take everything." Danielle hesitated. Years of pain flooded her mind. But her heart was still soft. She told Isaiah everything, expecting him to say no. Instead he surprised her. "Let's go see them." When they arrived at the house, nothing had changed. The same flag hanging out front. The same cold glares from Chase, who now lived in the basement. Robert sat in his recliner, weaker now, eyes filled with a mix of shame and pride. "I suppose you came to rub it in," he muttered. But Isaiah simply said, "No, sir. I came to give your family a second chance. Something I was never given." He handed Janet a folder. Inside was proof the mortgage had been paid off. In full. "Consider it a gift. Not for you, but for the girl who walked away from everything for me." Janet's hands trembled. Robert had no words. Danielle watched, tears rolling down her cheeks. It was more than forgiveness. It was grace. But just as the air started to clear, Chase stood up. "You think you're better than us now?" he sneered. "Throwing money at us like we're some charity case?" Isaiah remained calm. "No. I just don't believe in letting hate win." But Chase wasn't done. "You don't belong here. You never did. My dad was right. People like you." That's when Danielle stood. "That's enough." The room froze. "You want to talk about shame, Chase? Shame is watching your little sister become more of a man than you've ever been. Shame is needing help and spitting on the hand that gives it." Chase turned red, fists clenched. "You think you're something special?" Danielle stepped closer. "No. But I know I'm not the one still living in his parents' basement while a man you all mocked is out here changing lives." But then it happened. Chase lunged. He charged at Isaiah with rage in his eyes. Danielle screamed. Janet gasped. Robert tried to move but collapsed into his chair. And Isaiah? He didn't flinch. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more powerful stories that uplift Black voices and expose hidden truths. Isaiah didn't move. As Chase came charging toward him like a bull blinded by fury, years of discipline and focus kicked in. Isaiah wasn't just a businessman. He had taken boxing lessons for years, both for fitness and mental clarity. But more than that, he understood restraint. He didn't come to fight. He came to rise above the ignorance. Chase's fist flew, but Isaiah sidestepped at the last moment, grabbed his wrist midair, and twisted gently but firmly, disarming the situation without throwing a single punch. Chase stumbled forward, off balance, and crashed into a side table, knocking over a lamp. The sound of glass shattering echoed through the house. Everyone froze. Robert groaned in pain, his voice weak. "Chase, stop acting like a damn fool." Danielle rushed to Isaiah, who was already letting go of Chase's wrist and stepping back. "I'm fine," Isaiah said calmly, brushing off the incident like it was a fly on his shoulder. Chase scrambled to his feet, embarrassed and humiliated. He opened his mouth to retaliate, but Janet stepped between them. "That's enough. Haven't we lost enough already?" Her voice cracked, and for the first time real emotion poured out of her. "Your father is sick. We're drowning. This man just saved our home, and you're still trying to throw away whatever shred of dignity we have left." Chase stormed out of the room, slamming the door behind him. Danielle and Isaiah stayed for a few more minutes, checking on Robert, who refused to meet Isaiah's eyes. Before leaving, Isaiah placed a business card on the kitchen table. "If there's a medical expense you can't cover, call that number. I have a foundation. It's not a handout, it's what I do." Then he turned to Janet. "Take care of him. And of yourself." They walked out together, hand in hand, stronger than ever. But outside, as soon as they got into the car, Danielle broke down. "Why does it still hurt?" she whispered. "Why does it still feel like I'm fighting for approval that'll never come?" Isaiah squeezed her hand. "Because you care. Because you're human. But you don't need their approval. You've already built your own family, with me." And with that, they drove away, not realizing that from an upstairs window, Chase was watching. But this time his glare wasn't just filled with hatred. It was filled with something darker, jealousy. And behind jealousy, plans. Over the next few months, Danielle and Isaiah focused on their future. With Isaiah's company expanding, they launched a new initiative called Rebuild and Rise, a program that provided housing grants and entrepreneurial mentorship to underserved communities, especially focused on young Black professionals and interracial couples who face discrimination. Danielle spearheaded the community engagement side while Isaiah secured investors and legal partners. They were building something that mattered. Something that left a legacy. And though Danielle rarely heard from her parents, she sometimes received quiet updates through old neighbors or mutual acquaintances. Robert's health was deteriorating slowly, Janet was exhausted, and Chase had picked up a job as a night shift supervisor at a warehouse. But he was spiraling, drinking heavily, and blaming everyone but himself. Then came the day that changed everything. Danielle was at the community center, preparing for a fundraising gala. Isaiah was supposed to arrive later with the keynote speech he'd written. Everything was going perfectly, until a security guard rushed in with a concerned look. "Ma'am, there's someone at the front desk demanding to see you. Says it's urgent." Danielle frowned and walked out. Standing in the lobby was a disheveled-looking Chase, wearing a hoodie, dark circles under his eyes, and bitterness all over his face. "What are you doing here?" Danielle asked warily. "I just need 5 minutes," he said, trying to sound calm. "I don't want anything from you or your boyfriend. Just hear me out." Against her better judgment, she led him into a side office and closed the door. "Make it quick." Chase's eyes darted around the room. "I messed up. I know I have. But I'm in trouble. Real trouble. I borrowed money from some people, bad people. I thought I could flip it with crypto. Now they want it back. And I don't have it." Danielle folded her arms. "Why come to me? Why not get a loan? Ask your friends?" Chase chuckled bitterly. "You think I've got friends left? You think the bank's gonna loan me anything with my credit?" He leaned in, voice desperate. "Danielle, please. I don't care about you and Isaiah. But if you could just talk to him, ask him to float me 20 grand. Just to get these guys off my back. I swear I'll disappear after that." Danielle hesitated. Her mind screamed no. Every memory of the way Chase had treated them echoed in her head. "I'll talk to him," she said cautiously. "But I'm not promising anything." Chase nodded quickly. "Thank you. Thank you." He turned and left as fast as he came. That night, Danielle told Isaiah everything. He sat quietly thinking. "I could pay it," he finally said. "But if I do, he'll just come back again. Desperation feeds itself unless someone breaks the cycle." Danielle nodded. "So what do we do?" Isaiah stood. "We make him face it. But we also give him a choice." The next morning, Isaiah called a contact at a mentorship boot camp he funded. They agreed to reserve one last spot. "We'll pay off his debt, but only if he completes the 6-month program. No shortcuts. No excuses." Danielle agreed. But when she called Chase to tell him, he exploded. "What the hell is this? You're making me jump through hoops." She replied firmly, "No one's making you do anything. You either accept the help with the terms, or you deal with your own mess." He cursed and hung up. A few days later, a black SUV showed up at Isaiah and Danielle's home. It wasn't Chase. It was 2 men in black leather jackets, tattoos crawling up their necks. One handed Isaiah an envelope. "This your name?" Isaiah nodded cautiously. "Yeah." The man smirked. "Tell your friend Chase he's got 48 hours. Or next time we won't be this polite." Then they walked away. Isaiah opened the envelope. Inside was a photo of Danielle, taken from a distance just outside her gym. Isaiah's hands clenched. This wasn't just about money anymore. This was a threat. That night he didn't tell Danielle. He stayed up late, pacing, making phone calls. He called his lawyer. Then he called his private security consultant. By the next morning, extra security was assigned to their home, and Danielle's car was equipped with a tracker. But Isaiah knew this wouldn't end until they confronted the root of the problem. He drove to Chase's job and waited in the parking lot. When Chase stepped out for break, Isaiah approached. "You've dragged her into this," Isaiah said through clenched teeth. "You didn't just make bad choices. You made her a target. That's a line you don't cross." Chase looked panicked. "I didn't mean for this to happen. I thought they'd only come after me." Isaiah handed him the photo. "You were wrong. Now you've got 2 days. You either check into that program or I let them come for you, and trust me, I won't be stopping them next time." Chase was silent for a long moment. "What happens if I go through with it?" he asked. "If you finish the program, we'll erase the debt. And maybe, just maybe, you'll be worth the sacrifice your sister made." Isaiah turned and walked away. But as he drove off, someone else was watching. From a tinted car parked across the lot, one of the gang enforcers sat with a burner phone. "Yeah," he said into the receiver. "I got eyes on the guy. And his girl too. Wanna hit him where it hurts." A voice on the other end replied, cold and deliberate. "No, not yet. First, we teach him what happens when you get involved in other people's debts." The enforcer grinned. "Got it?" Cut to black. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more powerful stories that uplift Black voices and expose hidden truths. Isaiah had been through battles before, but this felt different. This wasn't just a business negotiation or a boardroom power play. This was real danger, the kind that follows you home and hides in shadows. After confronting Chase, he returned to their house only to find Danielle curled up on the couch watching old home videos on her laptop. Footage of their trip to New Orleans, their engagement party, Isaiah laughing as he burnt pancakes during a Sunday brunch. Her smile lit up the room. But Isaiah couldn't smile back. Not with the weight of a looming threat pressing on his chest. He kissed her on the forehead and said nothing about the photo or the men who had approached him. She deserved peace, at least for now. The next morning, Isaiah's head of private security, a retired military vet named Marcus Hill, updated him. We've added remote surveillance to the property perimeter. Cameras, motion sensors, everything encrypted in real time. Isaiah nodded. And Danielle? Marcus looked serious. I'll have a tail on her 24/7. She won't even know. Still, Isaiah couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't just about Chase anymore. It was personal. The gang had crossed a line, and that line was drawn in Danielle's safety. And Isaiah? He was ready to burn down anything that threatened her. Meanwhile, Chase stood outside a plain gray building on the east side of the city, Freedom Forward Boot Camp, a last-chance mentorship program for troubled men. It looked like a halfway house crossed with a military academy. Chase hesitated at the steps, debating whether to walk in. Inside, a program coordinator named Mr. Landon waited. A tall black man in his 50s with a scar across his chin and eyes that had seen too much. He's late, he muttered to a staff member. He's got 1 hour left. We don't chase potential here, they come to us. As the clock ticked down, Chase finally opened the door, carrying a duffel bag in a storm of resentment. I'm here, he muttered. Mr. Landon didn't blink. We'll see. The boot camp wasn't easy. Each day started at 5 a.m. with physical training, followed by group therapy, skill building, and community service. Chase hated every second of it. He was forced to face truths he'd buried for years. His bitterness, his insecurities, and most of all, his deep jealousy of Isaiah. But over time, the layers began to peel away. He learned carpentry, helped rebuild homes for low-income families, listened to stories from men who had survived prison, addiction, and poverty. And slowly, painfully, he started to see what Danielle had always seen in Isaiah, not just strength but purpose. But back in Isaiah and Danielle's world, things were unraveling. One evening, as Danielle was locking up her office at the community center, she noticed a strange car idling across the street. She brushed it off as coincidence until it appeared again the next day, same spot, same dark tint. Isaiah, sensing the escalation, finally told her about the gang's threat. Danielle was furious. You should have told me. We need to go to the police. Isaiah shook his head. We can't. There's no official record. No names. No plate numbers. They're ghosts. Danielle's hands trembled. So what, do we just wait around until something happens? Isaiah pulled her into his arms. No. We stay smart. We stay ready. And we don't back down. Marcus intensified their security detail. Cameras monitored every entrance. Armed guards rotated shifts discreetly. Still, one night while Isaiah was working late, the home's alarm went off. Danielle, who was upstairs in the shower, ran downstairs in a robe, heart pounding. The front door was wide open, but no one was inside. Nothing was stolen. Just a calling card, a single bullet left on the kitchen counter. That was the message. We can get in any time we want. That night, Danielle moved into a secure hotel suite while Isaiah and Marcus tried to trace the gang's network. Isaiah called in a favor from an old business contact, an ex-FBI analyst who now ran a private intelligence firm. After reviewing footage, they isolated a face from the SUV that visited their home. Tito Bones Valdez, an enforcer for a street crew known as the Marrow Syndicate. Drugs, extortion, illegal gambling, low profile but ruthless. And known for holding grudges. Isaiah now had a name. And with that name came a new resolve. He arranged a meeting with a contact from his foundation's legal defense fund. A man named Jamar Ellis, a civil rights attorney with underworld connections from his days defending gang-affiliated youth. You want to make Bones disappear? Jamar asked. No, Isaiah said, his voice steel. I want to make him irrelevant. I want to shut down everything he touches. Jamar smiled. Then we'll need leverage. Dirty money. Illegal fronts. Property connections. You ready for a war? Isaiah nodded. I've been in one my whole life. I'm just changing the battlefield. Meanwhile, Chase was transforming. Week by week, he started showing up early to sessions, volunteering for leadership exercises. One day, he stayed late to help a young man repair a broken table in the rec room. Mr. Landon watched from afar, nodding slowly. "You're getting it," he said. Chase shrugged. "Still a long way to go." Landon replied, "That's how you know it's working." But just when it seemed like Chase was turning a corner, someone showed up at the boot camp gate. Bones? He didn't come in. He just parked outside, rolled down the window and stared. One of the security staff alerted Mr. Landon, who came outside and approached the car. "You don't belong here," Landon warned. Bones grinned. "I'm not here for trouble. Just watching one of my investments." Landon narrowed his eyes. "This is a healing space. You bring poison here again, I'll handle it personally." Bones chuckled and drove away. But the message was clear. He wasn't letting go of Chase that easily. That night, Chase requested a phone call to Isaiah. "They followed me," he said. "I think they know where the program is." Isaiah's voice was calm. "Then we need to finish this. Fast." 2 days later, Jamar came through. He handed Isaiah a flash drive with detailed files. Proof that Bones had been laundering drug money through a chain of fake laundromats and shell companies registered in his cousin's name. More importantly, one of the properties was under investigation for human trafficking links. "We take this to the right people," Jamar said, "and Bones disappears off the streets permanently." Isaiah hesitated. "You sure there's no blowback?" Jamar leaned in. "The second this goes public, they'll scatter like rats. But make no mistake, Bones won't go quietly. He'll want someone to bleed." Isaiah swallowed hard. He had one chance to protect Danielle, Chase, and everyone tied to him. It was time to make a move. That night, he drafted a detailed anonymous tip and submitted it directly to a federal task force. By morning, a multi-agency raid was underway across the city. News broke on every major outlet. Federal crackdown exposes hidden drug empire behind Atlanta laundromats. Photos of Bones and his crew being hauled into black SUVs dominated the headlines. Danielle watched the coverage stunned. "Was this you?" she asked Isaiah. He didn't answer, just kissed her forehead and whispered, "It's over." But it wasn't. That evening, Chase was released early from boot camp under protective custody. Danielle and Isaiah picked him up personally. As they drove toward a secure location, Chase turned to Isaiah. "You didn't have to do this, man." "Not for me." Isaiah kept his eyes on the road. "Yes, I did. Because if you fall, she falls. And I don't let anything happen to her." Chase nodded slowly, shame and gratitude mixing in his throat. Then suddenly, tires screeched. A black SUV pulled across the road, blocking them. Out of nowhere, 2 masked men with shotguns jumped out, pointing directly at the windshield. Danielle screamed. Isaiah slammed the brakes. Chase reached for the door. Then the window shattered. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more powerful stories that uplift black voices and expose hidden truths. The windshield exploded in a rain of glass as the masked gunmen pointed their shotguns directly at Isaiah, Danielle, and Chase. Isaiah's instincts kicked in first. He threw his arm across Danielle and jerked the steering wheel hard right. The SUV swerved just as a shotgun blast tore through the driver's side mirror, missing Isaiah's head by inches. "Get down!" Isaiah shouted, flooring the accelerator and spinning the car into a wild fishtail that kicked up clouds of dust and smoke from the rural road. Danielle screamed as another shot rang out, shattering the back window. Chase, crouched in the back seat, shouted over the chaos, "I think they're following us." Isaiah didn't look back. He didn't need to, the screech of tires behind them confirmed it. The black SUV gave chase, headlights blaring through the dust. Isaiah gritted his teeth, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. "Hold on." He took a hard turn off the main road and barreled down a narrow dirt trail that led to a side service road he remembered from a property scouting trip months ago. "Where are we going?" Danielle cried. "Out of sight," Isaiah growled. "We've got to lose them first." They hit every bump, tree root and rock on the trail, the car jolting and bouncing violently. Behind them, the pursuing SUV struggled to keep up on the uneven terrain. Danielle clutched Isaiah's arm with one hand and shielded her stomach with the other, still shaken, breath catching in her throat. "They're trying to kill us, Isaiah." "No," Isaiah said through gritted teeth. "They're trying to send a message. And I'm about to send one back." The dirt road cut through an old industrial park, half abandoned and overgrown with weeds. Isaiah swerved behind a warehouse, parked the car out of sight and killed the engine. Out. Now. They jumped out and ran inside the crumbling building, breathing heavily. We need to call Marcus, Danielle said, fumbling for her phone. Already did, Isaiah said. Backup's on the way, but we need to hold tight until then. What if they find us first? Chase asked, glancing around. Then we make it hard, Isaiah replied. He picked up a rusted steel pipe lying on the ground and handed Danielle a flashlight. Chase found a wooden beam and held it like a baseball bat. Funny, he muttered. I used to make fun of people who said they'd die for their family. Guess I'm about to find out if I mean it. Isaiah looked him square in the eye. You don't have to die. You just have to survive long enough to see what living with purpose feels like. Footsteps echoed outside. Then silence. Then creaking. They were inside. Danielle held her breath, the flashlight trembling in her hand. A shadow passed across the broken window pane. Isaiah signaled for silence, stepping slowly toward a corner pillar. Just as one of the gunmen rounded the edge, Isaiah swung the steel pipe hard, catching him in the ribs. The man groaned and dropped to his knees. Chase rushed forward and tackled the second man just before he raised his shotgun. They wrestled on the floor as Danielle backed away, heart pounding. Isaiah turned toward her just in time to see a third man appear, pointing a gun directly at her. Isaiah, she screamed. He lunged toward her. Bang. The sound was deafening. For a split second everything stopped. Danielle opened her eyes, confused. The man's gun had fallen to the ground. Blood poured from his leg. Behind him stood Marcus, Isaiah's security head, holding a smoking pistol. Sorry we're late, he said coolly as his team rushed in, pinning the men to the ground. Danielle fell into Isaiah's arms, sobbing with relief. Marcus nodded to him. We got the others. They won't be bothering you again. Over the next few days, everything moved fast. The attackers were traced back to remnants of Bones' crew, angry loyalists who wanted revenge after the feds took down their boss. With the proper surveillance footage, witness testimony from Danielle and Chase, and Jamar's legal resources, the case was airtight. Authorities raided 2 more properties linked to the gang. Danielle and Isaiah were placed under 24/7 protection until the last suspect was arrested. Finally it was over. Or so they thought. With their safety restored, Isaiah and Danielle resumed their lives. Danielle returned to her work at the community center. Isaiah poured his energy into expanding his foundation's mentorship wing. Chase completed the boot camp with honors and surprised everyone, especially Danielle, by applying to community college to study counseling. People like me need someone who's been there, he told her. For the first time, Danielle hugged him like a real brother. I'm proud of you, she whispered. It's about time you joined the family. And for a moment, everything was good. Peaceful. Until Robert Hartley died. It was a Tuesday morning when Danielle got the call. I'm sorry, Janet said through tears. He passed in his sleep. There was silence on the line. He asked to see you before he died. He wanted to apologize. But it was too late. Danielle felt an old pain stir in her chest. She sat in silence before finally replying, I'll be at the funeral. Isaiah offered to go with her, but Danielle insisted on doing it alone. This is something I need to face myself. So she drove to her childhood town, alone, where the roots of pain still ran deep. The church was small, familiar, and filled with people who once looked at her with disdain. Now they simply looked away. Janet sat in the front pew, clutching a wrinkled handkerchief. Chase sat beside her, freshly shaved, wearing a borrowed suit. The service was short, filled with traditional hymns and soft eulogies. But when the pastor opened the floor for remarks, Danielle stood up. She walked slowly to the podium. Every step felt like walking through mud. She looked out at the crowd, at the eyes that once judged her, hated her, and pitied her. Then she took a deep breath. My father and I, we didn't always see eye to eye. But I know he loved me even if that love was buried under fear. Fear of change. Fear of difference. I forgive him. And I pray he's at peace. Then she stepped down and walked out. Outside the church, as she leaned against her car to take a breath, a man in a brown suit approached. He looked out of place, slick, smug, and unfamiliar. Danielle Hartley? He asked. Yes. I represent the estate of Robert Hartley. He left you something. Danielle blinked. Left me what? The man handed her a sealed envelope. She opened it slowly and froze. Inside was a handwritten note from her father. If you're reading this, it means I'm gone. I know I failed you. I couldn't change who I was in time. But I saw who you became. You were right. About everything. I want to make amends the only way I can. Below the letter was a legal deed to the family house. In Danielle's name. And just as she began to process it, the man in the brown suit added, "That's not all. Your father recently took out a life insurance policy. A large one. Half goes to your mother. The other half, to Isaiah Coleman." Danielle's eyes widened. Why him? The man smirked. Because your father knew. In the end, Isaiah was the only real man in your life. But the shock didn't end there. When Danielle got back to Atlanta and showed Isaiah the paperwork, he froze. "Danielle," he whispered, pointing at the life insurance documents. "Look at the co-signer." She squinted. It was Bones. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more powerful stories that uplift Black voices and expose hidden truths. Danielle stared at the life insurance paperwork, the final page trembling in her hands. "Isaiah," she whispered again, "you saw it too, didn't you?" He nodded, eyes locked on the name scrawled across the co-signature line in cold black ink, Tito Bones Valdez. It didn't make sense. Robert Hartley, the man who once threw Danielle out of the house for dating a black man, who called Isaiah every slur he knew, who refused to shake his hand, had named Isaiah a life insurance beneficiary. But worse, that policy had been co-signed by the same criminal Isaiah had helped take down. What kind of twisted circle is this? Danielle whispered, voice cracking. Isaiah stared blankly at the documents. This isn't over. The next morning, Isaiah was already on the phone with Jamar Ellis, his lawyer. This policy, Isaiah explained, how is Bones connected? Jamar called back a few hours later with the answer, and it hit like a punch to the chest. Isaiah, it's a front, Jamar said grimly. Bones used a fake insurance firm as a laundering channel. Turns out, your father-in-law borrowed money from Bones a year ago, most likely to pay for his medical care. He couldn't afford his treatment, and the house was close to foreclosure even before you stepped in. Bones offered help, with interest. That policy was a way to guarantee repayment. Robert likely didn't know who Bones really was. But Bones knew exactly who you were. That's why your name's on the paperwork. Isaiah sat back slowly, realization sinking in like cement. So even in death, Bones still found a way to send a message. Danielle felt sick. Her father's final act of redemption, his attempt to make things right, was tainted. The money Isaiah received would be traced to a criminal enterprise. If the authorities connected the dots, it could ruin Isaiah's reputation, his foundation, his business. Everything. Jamar had one suggestion: return the money immediately and issue a public statement distancing from the policy. But Isaiah shook his head. No, he said. We don't just defend our name, we expose the whole game. He and Danielle spent the next 2 weeks working with Jamar and the federal task force that had previously taken down the Mero syndicate. They revealed the policy scam Bones had used to clean dirty money, involving dozens of fake life insurance policies tied to terminally ill patients, desperate families, and even veterans. Robert had unknowingly become one of many pawns. In return for their cooperation, Isaiah and Danielle were cleared of all suspicion, and the information they provided led to the arrest of 2 major lieutenants from Bones' operation who had escaped the earlier raids. But the fallout hit hard. The media had a field day. News outlets ran headlines like, "Billionaire caught in web of racist father-in-law's deal with notorious crime boss. Love, legacy, and lies, the Isaiah Coleman insurance scandal." Isaiah's foundation lost a few sponsors. Danielle's community center received hate mail. But through it all they stood firm, hand in hand, unbroken. Let them talk, Isaiah told her. We speak with actions, not noise. A month later they held a press conference, not to defend themselves but to announce a new initiative, the Hartley Project, named after Danielle's father, not as an honor but as a warning. This project, Isaiah told the cameras, will help families caught in the cycle of medical debt, predatory lending, and hidden financial exploitation. Because the cost of silence is too high. Danielle stood beside him. My father made a lot of mistakes. But he died trying to make one thing right. And that's the part we choose to build from. Support poured in from people all over the country, Black, white, rich, poor. Survivors of similar scams came forward. Donations soared. And slowly the narrative changed. Not from scandal to victimhood, but from pain to power. As life settled, Isaiah and Danielle decided to visit the old Hartley house. The deed was in Danielle's name now. It sat quiet and still like a relic of another life. Chase met them there holding a ring of keys. "You sure you want to go inside?" he asked. Danielle took a deep breath. "We need to." They walked through each room. The kitchen where she once cooked with her mom, the porch where her father drank his coffee in silence, the upstairs hallway where she first said, "I love you," to Isaiah on a late-night call, hiding from the world. At the end of the tour, Isaiah turned to Danielle. "What do we do with it?" She looked out the window. "We rebuild it. Not to live in, but to turn it into something better." A few months later, the Hartley House reopened as a community healing center, offering grief counseling, family support groups, and job training, all free. On the walls hung stories of redemption, framed letters from reformed gang members, and photos of interracial couples who defied hatred. The grand opening was packed. News crews returned, but this time with admiration. Danielle gave a speech on the steps, looking out over the crowd, eyes filled with tears. "This house was once a place of shame. Today it's a place of strength. Not because we forgot the past, but because we grew beyond it." Later that night, Isaiah and Danielle stood in the backyard under the stars. Chase brought out glasses of sparkling water. "To family," he said, raising his glass. "To forgiveness," Danielle added. Isaiah lifted his too. "And to fighting for a future we all deserve." They clinked glasses. No more threats. No more shadows. Just love, purpose, and the power to change the story. Sometimes the people who shame you are broken themselves, trapped by fear, ignorance, and generational hate. But love doesn't just survive in the face of adversity, it transforms it. When we choose grace over revenge, purpose over pain, and unity over division, we don't just change our own path, we build bridges that others can cross after us. True strength is not in wealth or titles, but in rising above what was meant to break you, and using it to heal the world instead. The end. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more powerful stories that uplift Black voices and expose hidden truths.